Tell me about the good old days.
So we should talk about the good old days.
Tell me about the good old days.
Did you prep a topic? Because I have a spare one. If you don't have
I
one.
actually didn't. I didn't know I was supposed to. And I
You didn't. I was like saying there, we got to make a good.
When we were in the green room,
weekend.
I almost asked, what's the topic?
I have no idea, and I was trying to think. This was a back burner one. Okay, Happy Meal toys.
Oh yeah. Now, so first, based on exactly, and this isn't really a Happy Meal. This was a Burger King thing. But,
doesn't count. I'm kidding.
It doesn't count. No, you're right. It doesn't. But it's tangentially related. Just a couple weeks back, we were talking about Alf toys that were available at Burger King.
Yes,
and
I remember those.
Nanette, literally over, because 3-day weekend, it's project weekend, she's cleaning out the basement, and she came upon 2 of those Alf toys, but we've since lost the paper records that came with them. But one of them I pointed at, I'm like, oh, those Melmac girls.
Those Melmac girls.
Yeah, it was the surfer one.
I remember that. I got 2 of them. I got the one that looked like the surfer dude, and I think there was another that looked like Bruce Springsteen, right?
The other one was the chef.
Well, the other one we had was the chef, but you're right. There was one.
They had 4 of them. I think they had 4 of them.
There was a play on the. What did he go by? He went by the Boss back then, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's what I figured. Yeah, and it was pretty. It was pretty neat. You got the little records with them, and
which were hard to play because they were on cardboard, which kind of curled up. So,
but I had an old, the suitcase vinyl players that you used to have as a kid. I had one of those, so
I had one too.
I would like, oh, cool, it comes with the record. I'm going to play the Alf song, and I listened to the Alf song.
I used to play on those record players. I had a lot of those. I don't know what you'd call them, but there were these little books that had a 45 record in it, and you'd get halfway through the story and you'd turn the record over.
Of course.
And there were Disney and there was Marvel Heroes. In fact, the first Marvel one that I got, I was at a mall here in the Chicago area, and they had someone dressed as Spider-Man, and he was giving out free ones. And I got one that was a Spider-Man one that he autographed for me, and one that was Fantastic Four, which was the telling of the story of the origin of the Fantastic Four. And I love those things so much.
I had them for Indiana Jones. I heard when the bullwhip cracks, turn the page. It's like
I had all 3 of the Star Wars Empire and Jedi.
I did too.
And it was when R2D2, beeps.
Does the
exactly.
You would turn the page. I was so excited as a kid to get those. I was like, whoa, it's like interactive, and I got this book, and I'm hearing anything Star Wars, And they even made a couple original ones of those, like where like 3PO ends up at like a droid factory, and there's an evil droid there that wants to take over,
which
or something.
Kind of makes me feel like they had to be working off of some notes from Lucasfilm, because isn't that basically what ends up happening in the prequel trilogy?
Kind of, yeah.
And plus, back then, I think it was between Star Wars and Empire, Kenner had put out the Droid Factory, which was the only place you can get a 3-legged R2D2.
But Happy Meal toys.
Keep trying to bring us back to the topic, but really all of this has been good old days type of stuff, really. I mean, it's just two old
records. Do you want to
two
talk
old
about
farts
the records?
And a bunch of people in the.
Do you want? Okay, you want to save Happy Meal and just talk about records, the old play record things.
We could actually. I actually had a great.
Let's do that. Yeah, let's
do
that.
In the 80s. Well, because it ties directly to toys and marketing too. G.I. Joe was making the transition from the 12-inch action figures to the 6-inch action team line.
Okay.
And then eventually it went to the 3 3/4-inch,
right.
G.I. Joe. Well, during that action team era, they had a bunch of record what do you call it? Record books.
Yes.
And I had the Mummy's Tomb.
Yeah, I had it as well, or my brother
which
had it.
Tied in directly with a very specific toy line. I mean, it was actually brilliant, really. You'd get that, and then you'd want to go out and get the Mummy's Tomb, set. But in fact, again, Nanette working on her project today, she's showing me all the Christmas stuff and she's going, do we need this or should we donate it? Do we need this? Should we donate it? And she found I had gotten the ornaments of the G.I. Joe Adventure Team Mummy's Tomb set.
Oh, that's cool. And
I'm like, no, yeah, I definitely want to keep that. That was definitely a memory to that record book of mine.
You can find that record online on YouTube. Some people have it on there.
Actually, every record book so far tonight that I've mentioned, you can find on YouTube. Yep. Because I don't want to pull out my record or my record player in order to play the records. I can look at the books and just put on the YouTube and listen to it,
Yeah, I remember a lot of those old records. There was the G.I. Joe one. I think there were two of them too. I remember. Wasn't there one that was like in an Indian tomb or something like that too? I seem to recall something that was in the jungles of India. That there was another one there.
That one, so I don't know.
Yeah, I think that was the other one we had.
You know who's the real authority on G.I. Joe, and I don't see him in the stream tonight. That's Skipper Kenner. He really, in fact, boy, speaking of knowing G.I. Joe, he is actually responsible for a G.I. Joe comic book. He's a lieutenant at a local fire station. And after 9/11, there was a lot of, government money going around for FEMA and different things. And he made a pitch to his department. I'd like to work with, I don't remember who had the license for G.I. Joe at the time for the comics, to do a, safety thing, a fire safety thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so he went and worked with whoever was doing the G.I. Joe things to put together a fire safety comic. And they put together this comic and he would look at it and go, yeah, you can't do this because that shows one of the Joes putting himself in direct danger, and it's not like they're super powered individuals. So if you're going to do this, you got to do this, this, and this. And then at least once you've got to do a panel that shows like Snake Eyes or something in the background being treated for injuries by the first responders. And the comic book guys were all like, wow, this is good stuff. And so this comic book ended up coming out, and I'm actually featured in the back in the, want to thank, for their contributions. Cause I actually don't remember what I contributed, but I contributed something. I don't remember, but yeah.
No, that's cool though.
Isn't it? Yeah.
I think back on the things that were targeted to me as a kid, and I was kind of being stubborn. Like Transformers, couldn't get into He-Man, didn't get into G.I. Joe, but in retrospect, I probably should have, because in my opinion, just from what I could even tell as a child, it seemed like a lot of the G.I. Joe toys were sort of the successor to the Star Wars toys.
They
had all the cool vehicles and cool characters.
They were
the
next
size.
They were definitely the next generation of it. Yeah. They certainly capitalized on what Kenner came up with. The whole reason Kenner went from large figures to small was because, and keep in mind at the time, I just mentioned that transition. G.I. Joe had gone from 12-inch to 6-inch because Mego had made 6-inch a big deal, right? Well, Kenner took the next step and went to 3 3/4. And the reason for this was twofold. One, this was the 70s. There was an oil crisis. And I don't want to get into the whole history about that, although it does look like we're starting to repeat that right now. But plastic is made from oil. So plastic became expensive. So if you could shrink down the action figures, you could keep the prices down. But in doing that, that means you can also make play sets and action, vehicles and stuff that you can't do for the 12-inch, or they're just cost prohibitive to do. There were vehicles for the 12-inch figures, but you could only buy those at FAO Schwartz if you had lots of money. Whereas, most kids could get an X-Wing fighter, so that's why Kenner really took off with that. G.I. Joe looked at that and said, we could do that, and we could do it slightly better if we give them better articulation. And
Yes.
that's why they have bending arms and
Yes.
swivel and, all that kind of stuff.
Going back to the old records, I want to bring up a creepy one I had when I was a kid, or a disturbing one. We had a Swamp Thing comic book that came with record. Okay.
I did not have that specific one, but
Yeah.
there was a little advert for it on the back
Okay.
of my Spider-Man one. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I would have loved to have heard. Maybe I'll look for that on YouTube. I bet it's on YouTube. The Spider-Man one, the Swamp Thing one. These were like comic books. They were like
Yes.
comic books, and you would listen along to the record with the
Usually they were literally reprints of an issue of the comic books is what they were.
Yeah.
If they could find one
okay.
that was a standalone story.
comic. They would use it.
Yep.
It starts out with this clown
Mm-hmm.
in the swamp area or whatever, and I think he self deletes. I can't say wonderful words.
I
on
get
YouTube,
what you. I get what you're
but
saying.
the
Yeah.
point is, he leaves this earthly plane.
He
if you
was a
catch my
sad
drift.
clown.
He was a sad clown. He had the sad, and I'm looking at this kid, like, this is really depressing me. Okay,
Well, that's
watching it.
why I always thought it was interesting that Swamp Thing was a kid's title, because that came from, this was before they started separating them in the comics. But Swamp Thing ended up eventually becoming part of the Vertigo line, which was supernatural / more mature reader.
Right.
And those storylines were never really intended for
Not
kids.
for kids. That was not a
Yeah.
kid's story. Okay.
No.
But we had another one, which was an adaptation of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, and I'm reading it, and I'm here. Is here's Victor Frankenstein, and the monster just killed his
Wife,
his kid, and I think
Their
his
fiancé.
cousin, and everyone. It's like
Clavell,
everyone is family. Like that was my first introduction to the Shelley version. Like, this is really depressing too.
But that was the story, and I love that about it, because that's the real story, right?
It is. Yeah, they were adapting
You watch
it.
the movies and everybody's like, "Oh, the poor monster." Yeah, actually read the book.